Now, it is the most well studied environmental condition, and we have the best of the knowledge about this environment, because not only geologists, the civil engineers, the environmentalists, the business people, because earlier all the trades used to be through the river system. So river system is a very well studied system. But there is nothing which is the end of in science. So there is always an improvement of our knowledge as the knowledge increases. Now, fluvial system, how we basically subdivide the different fluvial systems. Now, any fluvial system, how it is made up of? A fluvial system is made up of which are the component? Number 1, channel, number 2, bar, and number 3, floodplain. These are the main components. There are other components. I will come into that. There are other components. But channel, bar, and floodplain, depending on different kind of fluvial system. And this fluvial system, they are majorly subdivided into 3 classes. What are those? Braided, meandering, anastomosing. This is the fluvial system. Now, how really these 3 different classes that is actually classified? Based on what criteria? The criteria by which this subdivision, braided, meandering, anastomosing is done, that criteria is called sinuosity. What is a sinuosity? Suppose I have a channel. If I take this channel, I start from here and take the length of the channel along the channel. Along the channel, I measure the length of the channel, and this length is capital L. And I take the straight line distance. This is small l. Then capital L by small l, this is the sinuosity. Capital L by small l. One is the length along the channel, another is the straight line. Now, if the channel is a straight channel, then what will be the value by L by L? Will be 1. That is when you call it a straight channel. And if the channel is something like this, and the value of sinuosity 1.5 or more, then I call the channel as a meandering. For a braided channel, the value of sinuosity is 1.1 to 1.2. That is the value for a braided channel. So, if I talk about the sinuosity, then the braided channel will have a sinuosity 1.1 to 1.2, whereas the meandering channel will have a sinuosity 1.5 or more. What about the anastomosing channel? Anastomosing channel are basically a variety of meandering channels, where a large number of meandered channels, they are superimposed and are differentiated from one another by a significant floodplain. I repeat, what are anastomosing channels? A anastomosing channel is a variety of meandering channel where a number of channels, they are separated from one another by floodplain and superimposed with time over one another. Is it clear? get the anastomosis channel. If you see the lower gangetic delta, and there the pattern of the channels, there are several channels. They are like the term. I just give you one example that girls they put their hair in the form of what we call the beni. Am I clear? In the form of they basically arrange their hair in the form of beni. That means this is how I am saying that the two things, they are intertwined with one another. This is how channels in the anastomosis river produce. They crisscross one another, but always separated by the plateau. Okay. Now we will first start our discussion with the braided. What are the major characters? Number one, coarse grain size. Number two, high width is to depth ratio. It may be 1:20 to 1:200, at times 1:2000. Number three, the main process is channel abandonment and relocation, which is also known as avulsion. At cases, channel abandonment and relocation. Number four, sheet sandstone. Number five, bed load domination. These are the characters of braided wood. Coarse grain size, bed load dominated sediment, high width is to depth ratio. It may be width by depth ratio 1:20 to 1:200 to 1:2000. Up to that it can go in extreme case. Main process that operates is channel abandonment and relocation, and we get basically the sheet sandstone as a product of the braided river. Sheet sandstone. And we always get a bed load domination in this kind of system. Okay, I am just coming within 2 minutes. Now, so now what are the things that basically control that a river will be braided or meandered? What are the things? Number one is slope. At what slope the river is operating. Number two, the water discharge. Number three, the sediment caliber. Sediment caliber. Number four, presence, absence of mud. Mud has a huge role to play. Fine. So now if I have in a particular discharge and sediment in a particular discharge, suppose I have in an area a particular discharge, I increase the slope. Increase slope. Discharge remains same, I increase the slope. What will happen? The sediment caliber that will increase. That is more coarser sediment that will be supplied. Coarser sediment will be supplied. And what will be the net effect? The net effect will be the channel system, it becomes more braided. What will be? I just make it reverse. For a definite discharge, I decrease the slope. And what will happen? That the sediment that will be delivered, that will be more finer grained. And there will be more availability of mud, and that's why the system become more braided. So it is a combination of what kind of sediment, because the sediment also it is controlling the bed roughness. Bed roughness. It will also control the bed roughness. So what I try to impress on you, that it is a meandering river system. It can change to a braided river system in a particular climatic condition. If I change the slope of the basin, or if a braided system and then there is a tectonic quiescence, then your entire basin that is getting beveled, and that braided system may change over with time to a meandering river system. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
So when I talk about a braided river or a meandering river, I basically categorize it for its particular character. It is not that a river will always be braided or always be meandering. It can change. Suppose I talk about Ganges River. What is Ganges River if I see in Rishikesh and if I see it in Patna or Kolkata? Completely different character of the Ganges River. Ganges River in Rishikesh, it is very shallow. The sediments are very pebbly, cobbly, gravelly. The river is shallow, river is wide. If you go into the Patna or Calcutta, then you will see that the river is very deep, it is muddy, that the river banks are much higher than that of the river. All these characters that is changed. Why? Because the availability of mud, the type of sediment that is present at that particular area, the river changes its entire pattern. So one thing we must keep in our mind, that when we talk about a river, it is not a static parameter. It is a dynamic. The environment is dynamic and it is responsive to its slope, its sediment discharge, its water discharge, and the presence of mud, bed roughness, everything. Now once we discuss this thing, then we come on to the braided river. How really is a braided river? Now, as I have discussed, that it will have a high width bite. depth, and it will create a sheet. Hello. So this is a general map view of a braided river, which is composed of a channel and bar. Now, what are the bar? Bar is actually in between the channel, the deposit, that is what we call the bar. A bar can be of different types. Number one, it can be longitudinal bar. A bar can be transverse bar. A bar can be bank attached bar. A bar can be lateral. All these different kinds of bars we get in a river. In case of braided river, most of the bars what we get are longitudinal bar and bank attached. We normally, very few we get the transverse. This is not very common in the. Now, how a longitudinal bar is formed? A longitudinal bar is formed by competence failure. By competence failure. During high flow stages, the sediment which it carries. One thing I want to discuss. Normally, when we call a flow a debris flow, and when we call a flow, it is a channel flow. How much is the sediment percentage in the flow which basically differentiate a channel flow from a debris flow? Both are flow. It is the sediment concentration that basically cause a flow, channel flow and the debris flow. Do you have any idea that how much percentage of sediment, if it is present in a flow, the flow become debris flow? Hello? Can anybody tell me how much percentage of sediment in a flow make a flow debris flow? It is about 15 to 20% of sediment. If a flow contains 15 to 20% sediment, then it changes from its fluidal character to thixotropic character. If you have the sediment concentration more than 20%, then you call it a hyper concentrated flow. This is what I am talking about when the sediment is sandy. If the sediment is muddy, the whole range comes down. Even 8% of mud can make a mud flow. So when I am talking about that it is a channel flow, you can understand the sediment concentration must be, it is a coarse sandy sediment, the sediment concentration must be less than 10%. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And that sediment, when it is brought in the high flood stages and in the immediate low flood stage, when the river cannot carry that sediment, it gets deposited, and this is how a longitudinal bar is nucleated. Now, this is actually mid-channel bar. So, initially there will be a competence failure and the sediment that will be settled. Then what will happen to this? This initial nucleus of a bar, it starts growing both on both sides as well as in the frontal side, because once it is deposited, the next flow, because it is the depth of the braided river is very shallow. Braided, I have already said, the width by depth ratio is very high. So what will happen when you coarse grain sediment of an earlier flow that has deposited this coarse grain sediment, the flow get diverted, the next flow get diverted, and this diverted flow deposits its sediment on either side of this, and this is how the bar grows in size. At times, this coarse grain, this also starts growing frontally by means of forming the low sloping facets. We call this low sloping facet. If anyone is not understanding, please let me know. I will explain it again.
Sir, please repeat.
First,
Again.
suppose there is a high flood stage, and the high flood stage, it is carrying very coarse grain sediment. But you know, the high flood stage cannot sustain for long. So once the high flood stage is abated, the sediment, the coarse grain sediment that it has brought, it cannot be carried by the river system further downstream. It gets settled on the river bed there. This is what is called the competence failure. And by this competence failure, the original nucleus of the bar is formed. Once the original nucleus of the bar is formed, it acts as a barrier to the shallow channel system, and the water flow gets diverted on either side of this nucleus, and as it is diverted, it loses its strength, and the fine sediment or whatever sediment it is carrying, it gets deposited on either side of the bar. This is how the bar grows laterally. These bars grows laterally not by active migration but by means of aggradation. That is addition of aggradation. That is addition of new sediment by the diverted flow. Now, as it continues and the bar is accumulating sediment, then the bar may or may not. Some bars may be stationary. They do not move. They only get aggraded and increase in size and finally gets vegetated at its top. They are stationary bars. But in some cases, these bars may be migratory. So I differentiate two types of bar. One is I differentiate two types of bars. one is stationary bar, and number 2 migratory bar. Migratory bar. What is the stationary bar? That I have a bar, initial nucleus, then it grows on either side, all sides. It grows and increases in size. It grows. Another is I have a bar and it grows by migration. It grows by migration. Okay? Can you differentiate the two?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So a stationary bar and a migratory bar. Now this migratory bar, it will be migrating forward. How? By means of the way I have discussed about the ripple migration, the bar migration. Similarly, it will migrate. It will cause a lee slope, and there it will be depositing its sediment and it will start migrating. Now, these are the two major patterns, and most of the bars, if you see, they are long axis will be parallel to the flow, parallel to the flow, parallel to the flow. So that's why they are called the longitudinal pattern. We also get some bars which are attached, which may be attached to the bank, what we call the bank attached bar. Very rarely, I will tell you in which type of braided river you get the bank attached bar. I will tell you, not that all the braided river you will get the bank. So what this braided river will do? Now a braided river, it is a very shallow, very shallow and wide. Now anytime any high flood stage, what will happen? That the high flood stage, it depends. You can understand yesterday. Suppose you think of yesterday, those who are in Delhi, how much of rain you got in yesterday? There is a huge rain throughout the day. Now what will happen if you have a very high physiography and there is a incessant rain in 24 hours? This rain will take out lot of coarse sediment. But today there is no rain. Today there is no rain. Now what will happen? Yesterday this incessant rain that has brought large amount of sediment, which today the river cannot carry. So it will choke the river channel. It will choke the river channel. And then again there is any rain, then can that channel act as a active path of river? No, the river will take some other course. This is what is called the channel abandonment and relocation. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This continuously happens in a braided river. Continuously happens. A high flood stage followed by a low stage. So there is the clogging of the earlier channel, and the channel takes a path in a new path, that is relocation. And in this way, the channel shifts its course and it takes a large area in its axis, and thereby it forms sheet sand body. Sheet. If the sand body it will form, that will be sheet sand body, because it is continuously shifting and it is depositing its sediment, and it is a very coarse grained sediment forming a sheet. Okay, fine. Now this is a typical character of braided river. Now there are 4 types of braided river. 4 types of braided river. I am coming to it. There are 4 types of braided river system: Scott, Donjek, Platte, Bijou Creek. Now, what is the difference? All these because of the difference in grain size, climate, and slope. Because of this, the braided rivers, they can assume the different kinds of system. Now, what is happening in the Scott type? In the Scott type, you have a very coarse pebbly sediment. Coarse pebbly sediment without any sort of cyclicity that is present. There is no cyclicity. It is dominated by debris flow, some stream flow, and there is no cyclicity you can make out in a Scott type. In Donjek type, you can make relatively the grain size become smaller, and you can make out some kind of fining upward cyclicity, which may be very crude, not very clear, but you can make out a upward fining character, upward fining character. The grain size further fine in Platte type, but the upward fining character is not as clear as that of Donjek type. So grain size is not very coarse as Scott type. Grain size is nearly similar to Donjek type, but the cyclicity is not apparent in this type. This is Platte type. And the Bijou Creek, that is the most fine grain, and it is also it shows some kind of cyclicity. It is totally distally braided system, and it is identified, it is differentiated from a meandering system because of its sheet geometry. It doesn't match with the other varieties of the braided. If there is any question, you can ask me. Or if you want, I can.
Sir, can you please explain the Platte type?
I am slowly. I am telling the character of Scott type, Donjek, Platte, and Bijou Creek. All 4. I am slowly telling. You can write. Scott type. It is dominated by debris flow with subordinate channel flow. No apparent cyclicity. Donjek type, the grain size finer than Scott type, and a crude cyclicity is apparent. The cyclicity in the form of fining upward cycles. Then the Platte type. The grain size is similar to Donjek type, but no apparent cyclicity is visible. Bijou Creek is the finest among the 4, dominated by stream flow, and is differentiated from meandering channels by means of its sheet geometry. Normally present in distal braided system. Okay.
Yes.
So, if I summarize now, how is a braided river? A braided river is essentially it is a coarse grain system, dead load dominated system made up of constituted of channel and bar. Bars are mostly longitudinal and mid channel bar. Bank attached bar are commonly bank attached bar we get in the Bijou system, we get the bank attached bar. Normally we do not get the bank attached bar in the Donjet or the Plateau. We normally get bank attached bar in the Bijou system. Okay, they always form sheet-shaped sand body. The major process is channel abandonment and channel relocation. Mostly they are differentiated. Suppose if I say how I will differentiate a braided river deposit from a alluvial fan deposit. Suppose alluvial fan, if you go to a mid fan system, they are also stream flow operate. If you go to a distal fan system, they are also stream operate. Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And that is also coarse grain. Now I am saying braided river, that is also coarse grain and the stream channel. So if I am in the ancient rock sequence, I am seeing a coarse grain succession, then how I differentiate that I am seeing a alluvial fan product or a braided river product? How I differentiate? Both are continental in ancient succession. This is a real problem. Actually, this is a real problem. That how I differentiate a proper braided river from a river system which is a part of a alluvial fan. Because in alluvial fan also I have the stream flow, I have the channel flow, I have the river system, part of the alluvial fan. And then I can have a river system which is independent, not associated with alluvial. How I differentiate the two? And this is a problem not in the ancient succession and particularly in the Precambrian succession. In the Precambrian succession, where you don't have any fossil control at all. To differentiate a alluvial fan and a braided fan. And people have tried a lot that what criteria I should follow. Suppose one criteria that I have told, you should have answered this, that a alluvial fan I should have a sheet flood, I should have sheet deposit, which I should not expect from a braided river system. But is it the only criteria on which I should depend, and is there that every exposure should have that product? There is no surety that everywhere I will get a sheet flood product or I will get a sheet deposit. There is no surety. So addressing this, the two persons, Blair and McPherson, I will not go into very deep, just I will discuss a little bit. Blair and McPherson. (1994). Pritam is there? Hello? Hello, is Pritam online? No, Aditi is online?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Blair McPherson, 1987 or 1994?
Sir, 1994, I guess.
1990. Okay. So, what they tried, they tried to measure the slope of modern alluvial fans and the braided river system. Modern. I am repeating. These two people, they tried to measure a number of modern alluvial fan and braided river system. Okay? And what they has shown that when they plot the slope versus discharge. Okay, they found the river system, all the river system, this is a line which has a slope of 0.007, and this is a line which is 0.026. That they found that all the rivers, they have a slope, when they are plotting the discharge versus slope of the rivers, braided rivers, the rivers are plotting below 0.007. And the alluvial fans, they are plotting above 0.0226. So they then termed this as a natural depositional gap. Am I clear what I am saying?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
They measured slope and discharge and found the alluvial fans have a minimum slope, उससे नीचे नहीं जा सकता, which is 0.026 meter per meter, and the river cannot have a slope more than 0.007, and in between there. Now there is criticism of this study also, but it is a phenomenal work and seminal work, that how I should differentiate between in an ancient succession a braided system from a channel system which is part of a alluvial channel. There is some criticism, and people now say that this diagram is mostly valid in the arid climate. It may not be so valid in a humid climate. But I am not going into that intricacy. That is a question of research, and people do that research. But as of now, this is the knowledge by which we go, that a river will not have a slope more than 0.007. Okay? Fine. Now, so now after this, I enter into the meandering river. So meander. What are the characters of meandering? Number one, fine grain size. Number two, high depth by width ratio. Depth is to width. Number three, no channel clogging and relocation. Here it is a lateral migration. Lateral migration. We will discuss what is this. Number four, mud and bank stability. Number five, it will create shoestring sand body, shoestring sand body, shoestring sand body. Number 6, floodplain, levee. All these are characters of meandering, just opposite to that of braided. Here you have fine grains, high depth is to width ratio, lateral migration instead of channel abandonment. Here I get the lateral migration, bank, mud and bank stability, shoestring sand body and floodplain levee. This is the character of meandering river. Now the first question comes, why a river meanders? What causes the meandering of a river? What causes the meandering? Now, there are two banks. These we call the outer bank, and this we call the inner bank. Okay, what happens really during the lean period? Because where there is a seasonal effect, rainy season, then winter season, so always there is a seasonal effect. Okay, now during the lean period, what happens that the channel, if you people have a experience of going by train above a meandering river, you will see that the channel is confined to one side of a river. So channel is flowing like this. Okay, so channel is flowing like this, it flows like this, it flows like this. During the lean period, and during the high flow period, during rainy season, the flow will be taking the straight course. Now this seasonal variation in the channel course that creates a kind of vortex within the system, What this vortex does? This vortex erodes the outer bank. What is the concave bank? And deposits the sediment in the next inner bank. So what will happen? That this bank, it collapses and this bank gets added. Many of us has experienced that during rainy season, that some the rivers, their bank collapse होती है, and लोगों की घर रहती है, घर के साथ collapse हो जाती है. वो कौन सी बैंक है रिवर? वो है सब आउटर बैंक. जो रिवर इन द लीन पीरियड में करते क्या है, उसको टो इरोशन करते रहते हैं, उसका नीचे से इरोड करते रहते हैं इन द लीन पीरियड. ड्यूरिंग द हाई फ्लो स्टेजेस, already the oversteepened slope of the bank and the high flow that caused the collapse of the bank. And this sediment which this bank loses, that basically gets added in the next inner bank. This is what we call the point bar. Okay. Now, this addition of material causes the coin bar to migrate like this. And the river in this course goes on shifting like this, and the point bar migrates like this. So what if I do a three-dimensional figure, then how it looks like? So draw it and then let me know. Is it done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now this is a meandering river, and as you can see, it is completely different from the braided river. Now, what are the major parts? You have a channel and there are bars within the channel. Most of the bars what I have drawn are transverse bar, though there can be longitudinal bar also, but it is dominated by transverse. Then you have this is a point bar, and you can have a flat plane. So what is a flat plane? Flat plane, you can write flat plane is a low sloping surface which get inundated at the high flat stage of a meandering river. Flat plane is a low sloping surface that get inundated during high flat stage in a meandering river system. Okay. Now, this is a point bar. I will come separately to the discussion of point bar. What really is a point bar? Now, during the high flood stages, this portion, which is a raised portion, that we call the levee. Levee is the shoulder of a river, meandering river system. It is a shoulder. Shoulder. How this levee forms? This levee forms during the high flood stage when the river struggles to cross its limit, and there is the deposition of fine grained suspension material on its bank, that we call the levee, which is a high shoulder. Sometimes at high flood stage, the levee gets breached, and the river sediment, it comes directly onto the floodplain. It comes directly onto the floodplain with a erosional contact. We call it crevasses plain. Okay. Now, we will come to this meandering channel first. So, what are the product of the meandering channel? One major product in the rock record that a meandering system it leaves, that is the point bar deposition. Point bar. What is a point bar? I have shown you in the 3D what is a point bar. Now, this point bar so this is channel and this is point bar. I have taken a cross section of the point bar. This is the channel and this is the point bar. So point bar, it is actually migrating in this direction. And how the channel is flowing? Channel is flowing like this. Channel is flowing like this. Can you see my hand and pen? So channel
Yes,
is
sir.
flowing like this and point bar is migrating laterally. And if I cross cut, what I see a typical fining upward succession. You have the coarse grain material that is actually that indicates the channel hollow egg deposit. This is channel hollow egg deposit. Actually, when point bar was here, there was the channel. Then the point bar migrates, channel was here. Point bar migrates, channel was here. Now the channel is here. So every time what I am getting is the channel deposit and the bar is migrating. So what I am getting that the coarses grain, that is the channel colloid at the base, you get the trough, large trough, then small trough, and finally to the silt and clay, silt and mud. There will be vegetation, there may be vegetation at the top. This is a simple fining upward succession, fining upward. Fining upward succession, that is it. Now these surfaces, these surfaces, which are actually lateral accretion surfaces, okay, and they normally have a slope of 15 degree or less. 15 degree or less. We call them as epsilon cross stratification. Epsilon cross strata. This is called epsilon cross strata. If anyone has any problem, please ask me. Their slope will be 15 degree or less, and they are called epsilon cross strata. Okay. Now, what will be the paleocurrent relation of epsilon cross strata with the channel deposit? Now, in the channel, the flow is like this. So, if the channel is flowing north-south, north to south. So, if I measure the cross stratifications of different bars, the transverse bars, the channel product, then in a paleocurrent, how I will see? I will see the southward paleocurrent. But if it is north, this is east and this is west. In which direction the epsilon cross stratification is moving? Moving towards east. So the epsilon cross stratifications, they will show the move towards east. So always the paleocurrent measured from epsilon cross stratification, that will be at a very high angle with the paleocurrent that will be measured from the channel cross stratification. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is again a very good criteria to identify that whether I am getting a point bar and a epsilon cross stratification. How to recognize that in field? In field, we identify number 1, fining upward succession, number 2, low angle accretion surface which is 15 degree or less, and this surface direction is at a high angle to the paleocurrent measured from the channel. Paleocurrent measured from the channel. Then we identify that I am actually in a point bar. Okay, fine. And another thing, all point bar, they are time diachronous units, because they are time diachronous units, because these are actually the time planes. Whereas lithological boundary goes like this. So they are time diachronous units. Okay. Then let us come to the product of transverse bar. What we get a transverse bar product? Transverse bar normally formed in the medium grain sand, medium to fine grain sand, and transverse bar are profusely cross stratified and trough cross stratified. So the cross stratified and trough cross stratified, extensive trough cross stratified, poorly sorted medium to fine grain sandstone, that is the product of the transverse bar. And what is the product of levee? Levee is the alternate silt and mud which are plane laminated and ripple laminated. Plane and ripple laminated, alternate silt and mud, that is basically the levee. And what about the flood plain? Flood plain is actually the product which is as I said, it is the product of inundation of the low sloping plain during the high surface. So it is basically a low energy environment. It will show the presence of the mud and silt, and in some excessive extreme cases you can also get the formation of coal in case of the formation of swamps and bogs. I am coming to that. So the floodplain it is actually the mud and silt. And if you have the swamp and bog, you can have the formation of coal as well. If there is the, now when you get the coal, when the channel is a stable channel do not change its position frequently, then you call it a, then you have the maximum chance of formation of swamp and bog on a flat. Okay, now I just introduce you to what happens when you have a lateral migration and avulsion. There is one term I want to introduce you, that is avulsion. What is avulsion? When a channel changes its course, when a channel will change its course, if there is no tectonic disturbance, a channel will always change its course when there is a tectonic disturbance. And always the avulsion will be high where there is a tectonic disturbance. Okay, so what kind of sand body I will expect? Commonly, a meandering river, it forms a shoestring sand body. That means that the sand body, it is like if you have a shoestring, then if you lay it on the floor, it actually forms like a shoestring. And that's why the meandering river, it forms a sand body which is bounded on all sides by the floodplain. So the sand body becomes the shoestring sand body. But when you have a shoestring sand body, then the sand body, how much will be the connectedness of this sand body, these lenticular sand bodies, how much they are differentiated from one another, how much they are encased in the flat plane, what will be the relative ratio of the channel and the flat plane. All these depends upon that what is the rate of avulsion and what is the rate of subsidence. If you have a high avulsion system, the sand bodies will be isolated and they will be separated. If you have a high lateral migration, sand bodies will be more interconnected. The avulsion is less. There is a low subsidence, sand bodies are interconnected. High subsidence, sand bodies are not interconnected. So all these, that is a part of a meandering system, that if you have a high tectonics, then you have a avulsion, and high tectonics lead to high subsidence. So you have the high avulsion and high subsidence that show that basically result is more disconnectedness of the channel system. Do we have time, more time, or time is up?
No, sir. Actually, we have a class from 11:30.
Okay, so let us stop here, and tomorrow I will start from here only, and we will have a because the practical problem I have seen, it is the same type of problem, only there were a lot of you who didn't have the graph sheet on the last day. I believe that now most of you have the graph sheet. So to have a more practice, I have given that, but I will send some more problem, another half an hour, to mail of all of you. Those problems also will be solving today, and the class will start at 2:30.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Hey, hello. I'm starting because I do not have much to say. I've already recorded the audio tape. So I'll just briefly introduce the Dharwad pattern again. So it is easier for you, but you follow the note. Do you see it? Do you see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you can see there are several components of South Indian shield or Tharwar Keton, whatever you say. It is mostly bounded by Godavari Gravel, Eastern Ghat Mobile Belt at the east, at south by grounded terrain, at west by Arjun Sea, and at the north by Deccan Tract. And the components are mostly Sargur group of rocks. Here you cannot find it here because they have patchy occurrences and it's not mappable. So we just have the location here, mostly at the southern part. And this Dharwar Keton or South Indian shield are divided in western and eastern Dharwar Keton by Chitradurga Sea Trail or Prospect Pyramid. You can see the red part is Prospect Pyramid. And each Keton, or both Keton, eastern and western Dharwar Keton, have mostly abundant granite gneiss that is called peninsular gneiss. Here at the western part it's light yellow in color, and at the eastern part it's pink in color, peninsular. And within peninsular gneiss there are several gneiss layers that is called the Dharwar group, or it is divided in Bahubadan group and Chitradurga group, that is older and younger gneiss layers. Here the green colored one are Eastern Dharwar Keton and yellow color here Western Dharwar Keton. Now these are the major component of South Indian shield, and also there are there is Kudappa which is represented shape. Yes. And Radhakrishna 1982 divided this Keton or shield area four technological division because of their technological importance. The Western Dharwar Keton is called the Iron Manganese Province. The Eastern Dharwar Keton mostly called the Goldfield Province. So you know Kolar, Hatti, those are located in Eastern Dharwar Keton. And there are two other segments, that is Hyderabad and Nellore Province, that is occurring at the northeast and eastern part of Kadapa, and the Sargur Province, that is at the southern part, that contains the Sargur, group of rocks and the ruins. These are the oldest rock of southern shield area. In many literature, you will find that Gorun gneiss is younger than Sargur group. Here, you can see in the stratigraphy, Gorun gneiss is older than Sargur group, so it's debated. So we shall consider both of these of similar aging, and they were placed in between 3.4 to 3 billion. And after that, peninsular gneiss formed entirely character, and they mostly created the mosaic basement for the deposition of the greenstone sequence of Dharwar group, the Bahubadan and Chitradurga, the metabasal sediments, tectonics, and many other characteristic features of it. And after that, the Chitradurga, the Prospect Pyramid formed along with the formation of the Chanukites or the granolites of southern Tibet. They are equivalent age. And after that, Kutuji dikes formed, and after that, the sediments, sediments deposited, Katappa here, and at the western part, northwestern part, there are Purana basins. I shall discuss this. So this is the stratigraphy of Eastern Dharwar Keton. You can see similarity with the Western and Eastern Dharwar Keton, but the names are different. Now this is Kadapa. You can see a prismatic shaped basin. It's mostly filled with marine sediments, sandstones, shales, limestones. and also there are volcanic activities happen. So mostly it is divided in four major groups. The Kadapa rocks, it is Papagni group, Chitravati group. Papagni and Chitravati are mostly located at this Papagni sub-basin, you can see easternmost part, and Nanlamalai group, that is located at the easternmost part, and there is Sisailam formation, that is mostly filled with sandstone, called Sisailam quartzite. That is, it is occurring at the northern part, the black color, and there is Kannur group. Kannur group is not part of Kadapa. It is actually Supra Kadapa. That means it is deposited after the Kadapa rock formed and smoothly metamorphosed, deformed. After that, this Kannur group of rocks deposited. That is mainly in the rest of the area of Kadapa. You can see the brick-like texture. Now you can read the rest of it from my audio tape and the book I provided. And this is the Purana basins. This is equivalent to the Kannur group of Kadapa, and it is located at the boundary in between the Tekan Trap and the Narwar Teton. You see the close pit running here. And these Purana basins, there are two Purana basins, the Kalatki basin and Bhima basin. And Kalatki basin contains two group of rocks, that is Kalatki and Badami group of rocks, and Bhima basin contains Bhima group of rocks. So that's it. So you just listen to the audio tape and write it down. Don't just listen to it until you write it down on your textbook or get the full information. And also follow the book I provided. So I should take the attendance. Sumit, are you present? Utkarsh?
Sir, Utkarsh is present. Actually, his mic is not working.
Okay. Ankita? Hakim? Prerna?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Dipanshi? Pallavi?
Yes, sir.
Shivrat? Ruchi?
Present, sir.
Drishti?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Pranisha?
Yes, sir.
Sujata?
Present, sir.
Manik? Jaideep? Prerna Sharma?
Sir.